Haram, I think I know what you like think you got through, but like I don't think you understood what Archie agreed to. What Archie agreed to is for something that he deems as evidence, right? If it is evidence, right, and there is some evidence, then it would lead to some sort of likelihood, right? He didn't say that anything you deem as evidence, right, you specifically would be something that gives likelihood, right? So he put into question what that would be in terms of it being evidence in the sense that, okay, is this thing actually correlative to some sort of representation of the Demon Slayer fan base, which was the burden initially put with the put upon you? Sorry, and yeah, so I don't think you won.
Yeah, so Sakazuki, what I said is most statisticians would agree that even
Get
like
that
a sample
list
size,
ready,
a
boy.
sample size of one, literally a sample size of one is enough to make like a claim more likely. He never addresses that. He also never addresses what was the other thing that supporting evidence at all is more probability inducing. So given that
Okay,
he
well,
accepts that notion, that's like more likelihood towards my view.
wait. Okay, one, yes, he literally, even if you want to say he didn't blatantly say, "Oh, I disagree with whatever you said about the statisticians," right? His position was very obvious in the sense of your whole thing about, oh yeah, one piece of evidence, right, is going to be likelihood increasing because he specifically said that this piece of evidence, right, has to be something that he deems as evidence, right? And what he was putting into question for this was it evidence in the first place at all? So regardless of what you're saying about, oh, one piece of evidence is likelihood raising, or one piece of evidence would give a little bit of likelihood, none of that is relevant if this thing is in question to be evidence at all in the first place, which is what Archie did. That's why he's asking you, okay, is this thing actually going to be correlative or representative of the fan base?
I'm saying that that reasoning is why I believe it to be evidence. I'm saying that that reasoning was meant to justify that.
Okay, again, you saying that statisticians say that one piece of evidence, right, is going to be likelihood increasing for the claim, right, or likelihood increasing for some sort of hypothesis is not going to be justification for something to be evidence in the first place, right? That explanation in itself uses the word evidence, right? Data, whatever it is, right? What he's putting into question is whether or not your data is correlative to the set, anyways. It's like, for example, you're trying to prove that someone is gay, right? And then you bring in evidence. Your evidence is the guy making out with the girl. And then you're like, oh, yeah, no, I brought up one piece of evidence, so I'm likelihood increasing my argument. And then the guy asks you, why does this correlate to the point you're making? You don't respond and you say, yeah, no, I already explained that one piece of evidence is likelihood increasing. Well, he's asking why this is evidence in the first place.
Well, no, I said supporting evidence and or reasoning. What I'm obviously saying there is just giving any reasoning and or evidence is enough to make like something more likely.
As okay, wait, okay. So again, I don't care whether it's reasoning, argument, whatever. The whole point is
That's
that
relevant, though.
your reasoning, right, is put into question to follow to whatever conclusion you're trying to make, right? The conclusion you're trying to make there, the burden placed upon you was, okay, Haram, can you explain how this thing is going to be correlative or representative of the Demon Slayer fan base? Because that was your claim, right? He put that into question. Instead of addressing that, you kept saying one piece of evidence is likelihood increasing. One piece of evidence is likelihood increasing. But what's in question is if it's evidence in the first place. I think you would agree again if Y requires X evidence and I present A, right? And they put in question if A actually follows to Y, then it's like, well, what the fuck did we get to there? Nothing.
Well, no, Archie like agreed pretty much that it would be supporting. The problem was that he didn't agree that
He
it
did
was
not. No,
sufficient.
no,
Yes, he
no,
did.
no,
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 yes, he did. Let me
no.
explain now. Let me explain now.
I don't need you to explain how. The
Well, I'm
claim
trying
that
to
you
contend
made.
judgment,
No,
so can I just explain why I
I don't
disagree
give
with
a fuck.
judgment?
Wait. Dude, once again, I'm just gonna, because I'm not doing this thing where you're gonna ramble on and tell me things that I literally just heard this last point very, very clearly, right? Again, yes or no, was your claim, right? This is an opinion, right? Or a stance that would be widely held by the Demon Slayer, by the people, and I don't know why the fuck Truth is recording this shit. Again, when it comes to this whole thing, the claim you made was, okay, this is going to be something that's going to be held by the wide, I guess, ranging people in the Demon Slayer community, correct?
Yeah, I was just saying like on like an
Yeah,
intuitive
yes or
level,
no?
most people would agree with
No?
it.
Yes or no? Yeah. Okay. Again, so then, right? Archie goes, okay, can you show this, right? And then you go, oh, like we can just use a poll, right? We can show how the people vouch. We can show like 10 people, 5, 10 people vouching for this. He goes, oh yeah, no, Haram. right? I don't know if that's going to be correlative, right? Or an adequate sample size, right? For an entire population. You then go, oh, well, wouldn't you say one piece of evidence is likelihood increasing? He says, if it's evidence, right? If it's evidence, then yeah, it can be. And then you go ahead and get this vouch or whatever, and he puts into question if it relates or correlates or represents the initial claim, which again, as you just said, was the majority, right, or a wide range of these Demon Slayer fans, right, would say this thing. So again, your initial claim, the evidence you attempted to use, was put into question to be sequitur to that conclusion at all.
So you're not
Like, I don't
addressing the
understand what
whole
you're not.
reasoning thing. Like, if I'm
You
saying
are so confused. You
you're
like
confused,
no.
why don't you let
Again,
me
you can say
talk
that
before you just disagree with me? Like, is it that
because
hard?
because what you were about to
Okay, I
say
just let you speak.
started.
Can I speak?
Wait, no, because what you just
What do you mean
said,
no?
right? What's no, no, no. Again, Haram, I'm not in a debate with you. I can just start perm abusing the fuck out of you, right? The point
Why? I
is,
just want to
is that
talk to you. Why are you being weird?
the reason I'm being like this is because you said your initial statement when you were going to quote unquote contend judgment, and it started off the same way you were just speaking. So my issue here is that I know, the rest of the VC knows, that what I said in response to what you said was more than adequate to explain why whatever the fuck you said, whether it be reasoning, whether it be evidence, whether it be the statisticians, whether it be your vouch from this random ass guy you DM'd, right? That's not going to be adequate for your claim. So then when you go ahead and start off your next sentence in response the same exact way that you started off the conversation, yes, I'm going to be like, Haram, please stop talking because I don't care to hear you repeat yourself. Because I'm not going to sit here and do this like ignorant circle fucking like ring around the rosy with you. There's no point. Like it's not going to get anywhere.
Wait, don't you think that the argument that I was trying to give you was that supporting evidence or reasoning is enough to just be like, okay, the majority of people probably agree with this?
Okay, again, you keep using the word evidence, right, in what you are saying.
We can just use
What is in
reasoning.
question? Dude, please shut the fuck up. Please, respectfully. Again, when you are talking about evidence, the idea of this thing being evidence in the first place is in question. Haram, if you have quote unquote reasoning or evidence that is not sequitur to your conclusion, it's not even evidence for that conclusion in the first place. Like you're just talking. Like please stop. Like I just explained, right, with the analogy I gave you. If I'm trying to prove that you are gay, that you like men, and I provided you evidence of you making out with a woman, right, you would look at me like I'm crazy, right? Everyone would, because it's again not evidence, because it's not sequitur to the conclusion. Right? Yes, in a vacuum, it's quote unquote reasoning. Is it reasoning when indexed are trying to prove this conclusion? No, it's not doing anything. So again, when you keep telling me, oh, well, I explained why one piece of evidence, right, can increase the likelihood of a claim. Well, what's in question is if this is evidence for the fucking conclusion in the first place, Haram. What is not hard, like, what is hard to understand about that? What was your argument that this was evidence in the first place? What was your evidence that this would be sequitur to the conclusion that this thing is going to be reflective of the Demon Slayer fan base?
It doesn't need to be evidence. If it's reasoning alone, that's enough. I mean, I literally, like, he does not contend once that that is reasoning. He doesn't contend that that's
you have
reasoning.
autism. What do you think reasoning means?
Reasoning?
Yeah, what do you think reasoning means?
I think reasoning is just like spewing words to explain what seems to make sense to you.
So you don't think that reasoning, right, has to be sequitur to a conclusion?
That is sequitur, absolutely. But even beyond that,
So what was,
even beyond that, you don't have to think it's sequitur. He doesn't respond to it.
What was your shut the fuck up, right? So again, if you just did all that, right, where you told me, look, well, reasoning is just going to be, what I believe and this and that, right? Even if I were to grant that's the definition, which I don't think if I search it up that would be the definition, but even then, right, the point is that if you agree it needs to be sequitur, like I've told you from the first sentence that I made in this conversation, what was your evidence for this reasoning being sequitur, right? That's what I'm asking for. And you've yet to give the fucking explanation outside of repeating, oh, I have reasoning, I have evidence. You just sound dumb.
Yeah, anyways, okay, so what I was just trying to say, though, was do you think, like, for judgments, you judge based off of which argument actually is sequitur to you instead of just like which argument you think was responded to or not responded to?
Again, I think that the way I judge is based off your burden of proof being fulfilled or not. The claim that you made was that this is going to be reflective of the Demon Slayer fan base. You attempted to give evidence, right? Now you're trying to say it's reasoning. Whatever the fuck this arbitrary ass distinction you're trying to make is, regardless, the point is we both agree that either way it needs to be sequitur to the conclusion. Archie questions why this thing would be correlated to your claim, and you just repeated yourself. You didn't give actual justification as to why this is sequitur. So please stop being an idiot. Like, it's just so dumb.
Yeah, so, okay, he doesn't respond to the reasoning point. He only responds to evidence.
Oh my God!
So he doesn't respond to the argument. It's sequitur as fuck. It's sequitur.
Right,
Why don't you think it's sequitur?
Haram. I'm bro. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Again, you're autistic. Haram, if you say X because of Y, Z, A, and D, and then I ask you why does Y, Z, A, and D lead to X? Right? Why is that sequitur? And then you don't respond, right? I don't think you fulfilled your burden of proof of showing me that your fucking argument follows.
Excuse me,
right?
I don't think that's what happened, though. I'm disagreeing with that. I literally just told you that.
So again, I know that you don't think that's what happened, right? I'm telling you what I heard, right? What I said Archie did.
Can you show on the
I give you a
record
full shut the
response to the
fuck
reasoning
up. No,
points?
shut the fuck up. Haram, wallahi, I'm about to perm abuse you. Because again, we're not doing this thing where you're gonna infinite fucking contest verdict. The whole VC heard this. I walked you through the events of the debate, word by word. You had no disagreement. When I explained how he put into question that it was sequitur, you had no disagreement. But now that you realized, oh shit, me repeating reasoning 400 times is actually not going to be evidence, you realized, oh shit, I'm fucked. So I need to actually do something, and I'm just going to go back and backtrack and now try and disagree with the recountment of the events. So Haram, that's not what we're going to do. We're done here. You lost. All right? That's it.
When does he ever put into question the reasoning point, though?
Again, I'm not.
He puts
again,
into question evidence, but not reasoning.
Again, I already explained it.
So he doesn't question it. How did you explain it? How did you explain it?
I already explained it. Again, I'm not going.
Okay, can anyone else explain it? How did you explain it?
No one needs to. You're muted. All right, cool. He lost. And what was the wager again?